Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Tomorrow is the day that transfer portal window opens up once again, and the word on the street is that this Miami Hurricanes program is about to be one of the bigger players over the next couple weeks in the transfer portal. Want to dive into this roster and talk about the positions that Miami is really going to be going after in the transfer portal, and how I envision this conversation going is right now we're going to just talk about the positions that Miami is going to be going after. And then as the week goes on and we start hearing some names that are actually going to be in the transfer portal, then we'll start having that conversation about top targets for the Miami Hurricanes. I am extremely excited for the next couple of weeks, especially for this program where it does sound like Mario Cristobal and this Miami Hurricanes program, this is a year where we're pushing the chips into the center of the table. Like, if there is any way we can maximize this roster heading into 2024, Miami's going to make that happen in the transfer portal. I think this is going to be a very fun next couple of weeks for the Miami Hurricane fans. We'll obviously continue to keep you guys updated. Before we get into the positions, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Miami Hurricane fans. We broke down that spring game Saturday afternoon. The amount of support you guys continue to show to the boys truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And much more importantly, would love to hear some of your feedback in the comment section regarding some positions you would like to see Miami go after in the portal as well. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And how I split it up was I have three different kind of priorities, right? And we're going to start with priority one. That is the position Miami is going to be most aggressive in addressing in the transfer portal, and that is in the secondary. And I don't think there's many question marks with Miami Hurricane fans. You look top to bottom of this Miami Hurricanes roster, we don't have many questions. But I think the one question that you do have is in the secondary. Now, I want to focus in on what kind of player is Miami going to be looking for in the transfer portal, because there's largely two kind of players that enter the transfer portal. One, the guys that were really ranked highly out of high school, haven't necessarily proven it at the college football level, but we know the potential is certainly there. Think of a guy like Earl Little who transferred to Florida State. And then you have guys that maybe were underrated coming out of high school, played at a smaller Power 5 or Group of 5 program, really balled out, showed that they can play at the college football level, and now are entering the transfer portal. And the type of player that I think Miami should be going after is the latter. The guys that have shown that they can do it at the college football level. Yes, if you can go grab a high upside player, you certainly would want to do that. But if you're Miami and you have the choice between a high upside player that hasn't really shown it on the football field versus a guy that you kind of know the known commodity that you're going to bring in, that's where I'm going, right? A guy like Michelle Powell, I thought was a really good get because he's played a lot of football and we know what he's going to be. You look at this Hurricanes roster in the back end, and you have a lot of high upside guys, right? Zaquan Patterson as a true freshman, Damari Brown. I'd even say Robert Stafford is a super high upside cornerback for this Miami Hurricanes program. We have the high upside guys. I think if you're Miami, you're looking at proven commodities that shown that they can do it at the college football level. Those are the type of cornerbacks and cornerbacks or safeties, I should say, that you should really be going after in this second transfer portal window opening. Now, the next position groups I kind of listed as priority two, where I think Miami could benefit from getting some names in the transfer portal, but I do not think it's a must for this Miami Hurricanes program. The first one I want to talk about is that running back position. And I think we all came away after watching that spring game and said, yeah, Miami could definitely benefit from having an elite ball carrier heading into 2024, especially with all the question marks you have regarding the health of some of these running backs. And we kind of had the question, Damian Martinez would be kind of one of those guys that, all right, we want a difference maker at the running back position. Yeah, Damian Martinez is going to be that difference maker. You look at what Miami has now and what Miami has healthy, it's a lot of inexperience that, again, has a lot of upside, but not a ton of proven commodities in that running back field for the Miami Hurricanes. You look at how this offense is going to want to operate. Yes, we're going to be airing the ball out with Cam Ward, these talented wide receivers, but this is also one of the best offensive lines that you see in the country. Miami's going to want to run the football. And I think behind an offensive line that I think is going to be as good as Miami has, you want a really good running back. And again, that's kind of one of those positions where you want to maximize this team. You want to truly push your chips into the middle of the table. Go get a guy like Damian Martinez. That's pushing your chips into the middle of the table. So I'm interested to see if Miami does in fact go add a running back. And if they do add a running back, I want it to be a game changer, a proven game changer, because we have guys that we're excited about on this roster. We want a guy that's proven to be a difference maker at the college football level, at that running back room. Next position, and kind of a similar conversation, is in the wide receiver room, where my level of concern for this wide receiver room was significantly mitigated after that spring game. Obviously, Xavier Restrepo and Cam Ward looked to be one of the more dynamic wide receiver quarterback duos that we see in the country. We kind of knew that coming into the spring game. My big storyline was Isaiah Horton. He looks to be a dude. He was a guy that we say could have a breakout spring for the Miami Hurricanes. We said that Miami is probably missing that big-bodied wide receiver that can win vertically down the field. I think a guy like Isaiah Horton certainly showed that he can be that guy for the Miami Hurricanes. So the conversation goes, in my mind at least, that if you have an elite wide receiver that's going to be working the boundary, that hits the transfer portal, yeah, that would make sense to go kick the tires on that kind of wide receiver. Think of an Evan Stewart from that first cycle. But I'm not going to be desperate to add wide receivers to this Miami Hurricanes wide receiver room, because I don't know if an average wide receiver really enhances this wide receiver room at all, right? And again, you want to have the conversation where you don't want to squeeze out the young guys either, right? Nye Carr, JoJo Trader, Ray Joseph looked really good as well. There's a balance between not getting too aggressive in the transfer portal where you're hurting the young guys on your roster, but also using the transfer portal to make your team better. So if Miami does in fact go to the transfer portal to address the wide receiver room, make sure it's a guy that makes this wide receiver room better. Because if it's not, don't worry about squeezing out some of these young talents. I am sitting here just fine with what this Miami wide receiver room looks like now. The last two positions that I want to talk about, and one of them is going to be a sneaky one. The other one I think makes a little bit more sense. These are priority 3 ones. Certainly not a need. I don't even know if Miami's going to be considering these ones. But I'm going to first go with the quarterback position, and not for the reason I think immediately jumps to people's minds, and you guys can let me have it in the comment section if you don't agree. I look at Miami during the last 2 years on the recruiting trail and say Emory Williams, Judd Anderson, probably not the top targets for the Miami Hurricanes on the recruiting trail. And that's not me knocking guys like Judd Anderson or Emory Williams, two guys that I think can have bright futures with this Hurricanes quarterback room. But I look at the potential names that could be in the transfer portal. Aaron Noland up at Ohio State, Austin Mack at Alabama, some really talented quarterbacks that could wind up in the transfer portal. And I think this is an opportunity for Miami to potentially set themselves up in a really good spot down the road at that quarterback position. Again, we don't have any question marks. Cam Ward's going to be our guy in 2024. Then he's off to the NFL draft. I look at the young quarterback room and say, I think there's an opportunity for Miami to maybe go grab a guy like Aaron Noland, who very well might hit the transfer portal at Ohio State over the next couple of weeks. We'll see if they do, in fact, do that. The last position I want to talk about that, again, was probably a priority 2 position group for me, now a priority 3 after watching the spring game, was the linebacker room. Right, we know what we have with Maui Noah. Didn't play in the spring game. Didn't need to see him. He's going to be a dude. Wesley Bissaint looks to be a very good linebacker for the Miami Hurricanes going into year 3. But then you saw some guys really stand out in the depth of that department. And that was kind of the question we had is, all right, we know Wesley Bissaint and Maui Noah are going to be guys. What does the depth of this team look like at that linebacker room? And I looked at it and said, a guy like Pruitt, certainly I'd be comfortable with him playing as a freshman for this Miami Hurricanes program. I came away looking at that linebacker room and saying, yeah, I don't have too many questions about the depth for that Miami Hurricanes running or linebacker room, excuse me. And so, yeah, maybe if a linebacker comes available, maybe you go out and get one, but I don't have many question marks at that position at all. Now, I didn't say defensive line. I didn't say offensive line. Those are 2 positions that I certainly don't think Miami needs to go address in the transfer portal. I think they're going to be very good. 2 things that could change that. 1, seeing what guys hit the transfer portal for the Miami Hurricanes. But more importantly, we kind of said this when Miami hosted Romello Height. If there's an opportunity for Mario Cristobal to potentially get better along the line of scrimmage, no matter how good we think that line of scrimmage play is going to be, Mario Cristobal is going to take us up on that. And so if there are some names that are big-time names that are on the defense or offensive line along the line of scrimmages, Mario Cristobal is going to kick the tires. And he might even go make a move because, again, this is how he wants his program and this team to be built, through the line of scrimmage. So, again, if there's an opportunity to get better there, Mario Cristobal is certainly going to take up on that one. Those are the positions that I have. Again, whether you agree, whether you disagree, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. We'll be covering it as it plays out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.